Hi, everybody. I hope you're having a great day. I am here to do a um, step-by-step tutorial with you to do some kind of an umbrella, rainy day watercolor painting. So this is the one that I have, first umbrella painting that I did that is now hanging up on my wall. So I'm trying to hold it up. I got the water and everything here. When you do watercolors, do a quick little talk about that first. And you need to put them behind glass. So you mat them, and you put them behind glass in a frame. So this is the one that's hanging up in my house. You may have seen it. This was one of the ones that I entered into the county fair. And since then, somebody else suggested I do another painting of an umbrella. I was kind of I don't know what to paint. She said, why don't you do another umbrella? So I did this one a couple weeks ago. So this one's kind of more of a gray umbrella. The other one's a red one. You can do whatever color it is that you would like. And you can certainly switch up the style of umbrella and what you'd like to do. So you could freehand this. I will put a sketch of the first umbrella, the red umbrella that I did like this in there. And where you place it is really entirely up to you. That's all about, where, you're feeling like putting it. Um, this one I put so that it was up and down. At first, when I started doing it, it almost felt like a beach day or something like that. Um, but the other one is more like this. I could flip it this way and put this. Like I said, you could freehand sketch this, no problemo, and make it something fun and awesome. Maybe I'll put this one a little bit more like this, or you can use the sketch. Now, remember we had said that you can use sketches. Many artists do as a little practice. If you're, not quite set with your skills with sketching or drawing yet. So I think this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to put it so that it's kind of in the bottom third, okay, and have a little bit more sky this time, and put my umbrella down a little bit more. I think I might switch up the colors too. I think I might put so I'm going to put the base, I think, of the umbrella right there. And I'm going to put my umbrella. So when I start watercolor paintings, this is how I start most of them. So I kind of get my idea of what I'm going to do or have my reference photo, and from there start sketching it in. I think I want this open a little bit more than closed. And then from there I want, I don't know, are these called the ribs of the umbrella? The parts that kind of keep the umbrella, give it the shape. I've never really studied an umbrella, I guess, so I don't really know. We talked about that with the drawing section when we talked about drawings. When you start drawing things, you tend to learn a lot more about them, which is really cool. So if you ever want to, study something, start drawing it, because in order to draw it, you kind of have to know where things are. This one, maybe I'll give this one a little bit of that part that's sticking out there. Okay, like that. And then it's obviously going to have the opposite reflection in the water below, because the ground's going to be wet. So there's going to be some shadow under here, and then the area is going to come out. And then from here, this is going to kind of have the little dips here. Again, this is watercolor. I mean, you can get really realistic with watercolor, absolutely can. But most watercolors that I have ever seen tend to be very, loosey-goosey. So, for the most part, whatever works for you. Find your groove. That's most important thing. Find what works for you, what you're comfortable with. I think this part needs to be out a little bit more. Okay. And then from here, if this is my center, then I'm going to put this going up like this, and I'm going to put a handle on it like that. Okay. All right. I know it's probably pretty light. You might not be able to see it that well. I don't want to go too dark because I don't want the pencil to come through when I paint it. So again, the biggest thing is you want this kind of shape out on what you want your umbrella to really look like. Okay, get your shape together there, and make it, something that you're happy with. It's the most important thing. And then that's what you're going to do. Okay, now usually from here is when I try to pull up some of the excess. Okay, so I'm just going to lightly go over it with an eraser. I want it to be enough there that I can see it, but light enough that for the most part it's not going to be seen to everyone else. The nice thing about that I've found, at least so far, with doing some of these umbrellas is that the areas where my pencil marks are also areas where I'm going to go over and hit with some of the light lines. So like, for example, here I went over some of these dark ribs just to kind of give them that definition, that boldness. So it made it a little bit more difficult for you to be able to see that was there. Now, like I said, I think I'm going to switch up the colors with the umbrella. I think I'm going to make my umbrella blue. And this painting, I had, a more blue sky with the gray umbrella. The first one, I think I had more of a gray sky with the red umbrella. I think this one I'm going to do the blue umbrella. I'm going to do a grayer sky with the Payne's gray. And I am going to do, that yellow coming out here. So let's put maybe a kind of a loosey-goosey horizon line out here. So I'm going to put it so that the light is kind of shining from here down, and then we'll have it kind of contrasting this reflection down here, and we'll have the sky coming out here. You know what, maybe I want a little less. I don't want to go exactly in the middle. Let's see, that would be about halfway. So let's put it maybe just below halfway. Let's put it right there, and we'll have that yellow streak coming out there. I liked the way when I did the abstract painting with the blue colors and the brown, I liked the way that this yellow ochre really contrasted with the blues, kind of complemented it. So I think I want to kind of play around with some of those. So these are the colors that I have out. I'm going to be using my liquid watercolors, but you can use any watercolors that you have. Totally okay. And it will make a really, really beautiful painting. All right, so the first thing I am going to do is work on this sky. Okay, so what do I have here? I have my painting, my watercolors. Again, whatever kind of watercolors that you have, totally okay. Even if it's Crazy Art or the Crayolas or whatever you have. I have an assortment of brushes. I have way too much. What you need that I would say here is a big brush for our backgrounds. You need maybe a little bit more narrow for some of the details. You could even do, you know, a flat or something like that for some of the smaller details. And then something that's a little bit more, you know, pointed for some of the finer details. Okay, so really just a handful of brushes is all you really need. So I can even put all of these back. Let's see if we can just do 4. All right. So I think I've done some watercolor tutorials step by step on here, but if you've never done them with me, I do not claim to be a professional watercolor painter. I enjoy doing it, and it is a lot of fun, but I'm still in the learning process myself, in my opinion. So the first thing I usually do after I've got my loose sketch and I know the direction that I'm going and I've erased some of the stuff, the first thing I do is to give the places that I am going to paint a good soaking. All right, controlling watercolors is one of the reasons why people don't really like them. So when you learn how to control them, it makes it a much more pleasant experience. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is wet the sky because that's where I'm going to start. And I am going to go around. If you can see, that's pretty wet. You can see some shine on there from my lights. All right, and I want to work fast. Might even have to turn the fan off in the room because you want to work fast, or at least try to keep it from drying out, because that's going to allow this cloud area to kind of bloom together to make this awesome sky. All right, so I want some Payne's gray. So I'm going to work on my sky first. I'm going to take some Payne's gray here. The paints that I have in here already are these same colors. They've just been in here from previous painting endeavors, works, and I haven't really put it away. Now you see how it starts blooming. I tend to work pretty light. Watercolors dry darker, and as we've mentioned before, you can layer them really, really nicely. So I don't have anything to worry about here. These are going to dry really light. It's, you know, this is where it's very forgiving, even though it feels like it's not a very forgiving medium. And that helps me to take my time a little bit, make sure that I get these things right and that I'm a little bit more comfortable before I just start boldly going into this okay, and if you see that I'm dabbing, for me when I'm making these when I'm making these clouds in the sky, I find for me that just dabbing the colors around really helps me to get the colors the way that I want them. And if you notice too, where I didn't put the water here on the umbrella, the colors are not going. So I'm super duper awesome in the clear here. It's not blending around where I'm going. Oh, I should have already also said, because I don't think I said it already. I am using a Canson paper. This is 12 by 15, I think. Sorry, I know it's around here someplace. Here it is. I'm using Canson cold press watercolor paper. You can use whatever works for you, but I would highly recommend watercolor paper, and I would also highly recommend this painter's tape. So this is just the plain painter's tape that you get in your painting section of Home Depot, Walmart, stuff like that, like when you're painting your walls to cover the trim or whatever, to protect areas. That's exactly what I'm using right here. It works so well. So that's all I'm using. I measured in 1/4 of an inch. It's going to give me a nice border, but it's also going to give me, you know, a nice, you know, keep the paint down, keep my paper stretched out. It'll give me a wonderful fill, a wonderful picture, full picture once it's done. I love the edges when you take that tape off, and it has that beautiful, it almost looks like it's in the start of the framing process. All right, so that's what I'm doing with the sky right now. Okay. And let's see here. Let's see if we can just kind of carefully pull this down. Let's start with maybe a little bit of this yellow ochre. I usually start out much lighter than this, but I'm curious to see what happens. So what I want to give that look of is that glow of that sun as it just starts to pop out from the clouds right as that storm is starting or ending. That beautiful little, hey, don't forget I'm still here. Yeah, that. We get those, you know, and I know they happen all over the place, but it's so weird here in Florida where, you know, you can be in the middle of this pouring rain, and yet it's sunny out at the same time. I do love Florida. It's an interesting place. I've lived in lots of interesting places, but there's some things in Florida that are just kind of like nothing I've ever seen before. All right, so there we are with that. And then toss in some of this yellow. Okay. And then out here, let's see. Sorry, I can't remember if I already said it. Watercolors dry lighter, so don't be afraid of putting it on a little bit darker than you think you need it. Okay, because it's going to dry darker, and I mean you can layer them so you can add more, but it's obviously going to be much easier if you simply put in a little bit extra and you know, let that kind of happen. Let's see. Not 100% sure what colors to use. I'm going to use those blues in there, so maybe I'll use some ultramarine blue down here, or not, this is sorry, phthalo blue down here. I think I'm going to add some more of the phthalo blue up top, and actually I want to pull some of this away from here and put it down here. All right, let's add a little bit of this up top here. right, let's see. All right, I am going to pick up some of this extra that's kind of pooling here because I don't want that to happen. I did put a lot of water there. So I'm just going to kind of soak up some of this extra that's kind of pooling up top or in these certain areas. So for this, what I usually do is just take a towel and kind of use that capillary action when you put something, you know, dry next to something that is kind of soaking wet, and just kind of let it pull itself up and off. You know, especially with the fact that this is supposed to be clouds. I mean, we could even come in here and kind of do a little dab here, because even if I pull up some of the paint, it's not going to be a super big deal. In fact, it might actually add to the cloud texture that I'm looking for in the background. So I'm going to grab less water, more of that Payne's gray, and kind of, well, it's still nice and wet here. Dab some of those around and let them just bloom around. I like these liquid watercolors. I've been using them for a few months now. And so far I like them because I feel like I have a little bit more control over the amount of pigment that I'm picking up. But you can do this with, you know, any of the other watercolors like we've talked about too. You just, you know, need to control how much water you're putting down on those little the little pods of the pigment, if you will. Use less water and you'll, you know, pull up more of the color. All right, so I'm going to let this, once I kind of get my sky a little bit more settled, I'm going to let this dry a bit. And then from there, I am going to finish working on the rest of it. I put a little bit of those. I think I'm putting too much pigment in though. This is where I want these little, just cute little quiet blues in there of the sky kind of popping through. Like, see, it's still a good day. See, there's still some blue skies popping through. phthalo blue, I think, makes such a pretty sky color. It's just kind of, it's a very bright blue. Um, okay, just gonna put a couple, really hit some dark spots with this. I think the one thing that I've noticed with, I guess you could say this with acrylics too, because acrylics dry darker. Watercolors dry lighter. But with watercolors, I just feel like I'm not 100% certain how it's going to look until it's really done, until it's dry. But I'm going to leave I think I'm going to leave my sky there for right now. We'll wait to see how it looks after. And you can dry this with a hair dryer. I would use a cool setting, or you can just kind of let nature take its course and pause here and let this dry by itself. The biggest thing is letting the background dry enough so that if we go into these details with the umbrella, everything isn't going to mesh together. You're not going to get whatever color we're putting here with the umbrella mixing with, whatever color you have in your background. That is not what we're looking for. So I'm going to let this dry and I will be back in a little bit. All right, back again to finish this, and hopefully we will get this finished in this shot. So everything is nice and dry here. As you can see, it probably looks much lighter than it did when I stopped the last time. So I am going to dig into this umbrella. That is going to be the first thing that I'm going to do, okay? And since I have these pencil lines and things here, and just so that I don't lose them, I'm going to start with my finer brush, and I'm just going to give myself a nice little outline here, okay, with some, I think this is ultramarine blue. I think I have some strange shadows going on. Hang on just a second. There we go. Didn't have all my lights on. My apologies. Still working on getting some decent lighting here for you guys. But hopefully you guys can see everything pretty okay. All right, so I'm just going to use this ultramarine blue, whatever blue you want. Just kind of get those ribs of the umbrella kind of outlined and put together. All right, so we've got this one here. This also just kind of helps me so I don't lose where things are as I get going in paintings. For me, that tends to happen. I just get so excited and then I kind of lose track of what's supposed to be where. So this will just kind of help be my guide. All right, here's that line here. And you guys know some from, some of the sketching videos and things that I've done. I don't really throw down one line. Um, it's kind of tough for me. I usually make a few of them and then have to go with the one that I want when I do my sketches. And obviously I did the sketch there, so I don't want to lose any of that. So try to make sure that I keep that there. And then I'm going to use purple. Yeah, I did say we were going to do this one blue, right? Done a red umbrella, and I've done the kind of gray umbrella. This one's going to be more in the blue family. So we'll do that, and we'll leave that there. Okay. Now I am gonna play with that in the center there, except I don't want something this thin. All right, so I'm gonna put the shadow in back there first. Right, so I'm using the purple. You can use, like we said in the beginning, I mean, you can use any colors that you want here, especially when I'm doing some of my shadows. I think I've talked about it in some of my other videos. I've kind of shied away from just going straight to the grays and blacks. I like to try playing around with other colors to kind of give those highlights and shadows, and not just going straight to white and black for that. um, like I said, you can do what you want. That's the wonderful thing about art. But I have found that putting in sometimes purples or complementary colors, some of those things, by playing around with some of that, I've gotten some really fun results from that. All right, so now we need to put this, while that's drying, this purple part up here, I'm going to go ahead and put in this kind of reflection that we have going on with this umbrella here. So I'm just going to start out, because my water is going to be going kind of back and forth. So I'm just going to go a little bit back and forth here. Okay. Obviously my shadow area is going to be darkest right underneath, where the umbrella is, and it's going to get looser and um, kind of lighter as it goes out. Okay, we're just trying to put in some of this idea that there's this kind of wet area here. It's moving because the rain is going to come down. I'm not sure which angle will have the rain come down yet, but the water is not sitting stagnant. The water is moving, and it's reflecting up this blue area. This also is the color of the sky, so we can pull some of this a little bit farther out. And remember, some of these areas might look a little dark. That's okay. But remember too, it's going to dry lighter than you think it will. Okay, so unlike acrylics that usually dry darker, watercolors tend to dry lighter. So we'll just put some of this here just to give this idea that there's this kind of ripple thing going on with this rain. All right, now we'll move into, this is the ultramarine. I'm trying to remember what colors I have. I have cobalt, I have phthalo. That's the phthalo that I just put down here, and the ultramarine. So what color blue do I have here? This might be the ultramarine as well. Actually, I think this might be the cobalt. Got a few blues here, and I don't remember which one I put where. So we're just gonna kind of put something happening here. Now, one thing again I think I talked about with watercolors. Watercolors, you can get really realistic. There's a lot of watercolor artists out there who are very realistic. Most times when I think of watercolors, I think of very loose, a very fun medium that people like to kind of play around with. Some kind of do the loose in the background and tighten up with the details. So, don't be afraid that, everything doesn't have to look perfect. This is obviously a pretty impressionistic style, I would say. There may have a realistic feeling in the end once it's done, but I think for now, there should be just this kind of feeling of relax. It's just this beautiful moment with this umbrella that was left outside, or maybe somebody was running through the rain, or there was a big gust of wind or something that came up and took it out of their hands and landed here. And maybe at the time it was raining so hard, the rain, they just left it and ran into where it was. I like making up stories when I paint, kind of wondering why things would happen. It's fun. Of course, when I do it when I'm on video, I kind of have this Bob Ross moment where I'm like, wow, that's like Bob Ross. He does those things. I'm going to put it right over that purple because I'm going to hit that purple, hit that purple even harder. I might put some gray with it just to make it stand out a little bit. All right, I'm going to leave that for a little bit, let it dry, and this looks like it is dry. It's dry here in Central Florida. It's started to get a little warmer, but it's still pretty dry, which is nice because then that makes it tolerable to actually go outside. If you've spent any time here in Florida, you know that our summers are rough at best. They are very warm, very humid. We usually get a rainstorm, or we used to anyway, get a rainstorm through about every afternoon, but last summer I don't think we really did, which was great because kids could go doing more stuff outside, but it was a dry summer for us, relatively speaking. Okay. Now here I may have to really, since I'm using these blues, I might really have to get some pretty intense color going on so I can get some shadows. or use a little bit of gray or something to mix in there so I can get some darker colors. These blues, maybe if I mix, like make a purple, let's see, what if I did purple, or this violet color, maybe a blue violet. What if I mixed, I guess I'm just going to do it in here. If I did that, well, that's nice. Gets me some depth there. Okay, I do like that. I'll have to go over with some darker lines once it's done. So for now, I'm just kind of going in a little bit farther from the outside of these ribs, kind of coming in a little bit more. Let's see if I can get some. Let's see how we can do this here. I mean, the wonderful thing with art is, especially with this playing around that we're doing right here, is there really is no right or wrong. This is just playtime. It's just playtime. Just trying things out, seeing what's happening. Nobody's judging or grading. We're just playing around, having some fun with some paint, some colors, and seeing what happens. That's all. And I mean, it's, for me, it's really important to play with art. You know, even when I get into my professional mode, to remind myself that this is still play. When I, get too worried about it or take it too seriously, it's not the way it's supposed to be. And, a lot of it is just experimenting and seeing what happens and playing around and stuff. I mean, that's, to me, when I allow myself to do that, is when some of the coolest stuff happens. And I guess that's why I don't work in just one medium. I see something that other people have done, and I'm like, oh, wow, that's so cool. I want to try it. And I think that gives me the ability to maybe do other things or bring maybe things that I learned from that medium over to others. It certainly also allows me to do, do these videos and stuff like that for you guys with trying different styles and different mediums. Like if I was so stuck on only using a certain type of medium or only doing certain sketches and drawings and stuff like that, I definitely don't think I would be able to do this. I know there's a big thing right now in the art world to really, get your niche, your niche, to find the thing, the medium that you're working in, that you're good at, and go with it. And that's great. I'm not going to tell you not to, but I think it's natural for us to gravitate towards something and to go with it, and that allows you to perfect it. But especially if you're talking about your kids and they want to get their creative juices flowing and stuff like that, I think it's a little scary to get too focused on one medium, one style, right away. I would say try different things. There's always going to be that one comfort zone that you keep going back to, and that's totally cool. But unless you play around and really try, you're really not going to know, if you're good at, something else. If you only use, paints and you don't sketch and draw, you're not going to know if you're good at that. If you, only use color pencils, but you never break out and try, I don't know, soft pastels or oil paintings or, whatever. There's just a lot to try. And I would say if there's anything you could do to make yourself a better artist, especially while you're young, is to continue to try new things. Um, that's my way of looking at it anyway. But again, I just like to play around. I'm no real expert. But for kids, I would recommend that you stay pliable. If your kids are talking about that they're interested in doing something artistic or career or something like that, especially if they're talking about going to school for that, whether it's graphic design or things like that, I would say the more that you can expose yourself to the different type of art mediums that there are out there, and art styles and things like that, the better off you're going to be, because it's just going to give you the opportunity to try different things. And especially schools, my guess is, are going to want to see the ability to play around with different things. Don't get too soaked into, well, I only work in this or whatever when you're, too young. It's just my opinion, my personal thing. So stay loose, have fun, tighten up when you need to, and don't be afraid to try new things. I think this is starting to get a little wet and mixing and stuff, and that's fun, but I think I'm just going to play around with it just a little bit more, and then I'll let it set, and then we'll go back with the more details into it in a little bit. Okay, now I'm going to try to prevent too much from bleeding in. If I take a damp brush that's clean and I kind of go through it like that, that will help to give me that lighter space. You can just kind of pull it up. Help to give me some of those highlights that I'm looking for, because like I said, everything's kind of gotten wet here and everything's starting to bleed together like I warned you would happen if you let it, which isn't bad. Again, we can go back and look at some of the highlights and lowlights in a little bit. Just try to control it a little bit before it gets too crazy on us. I am kind of liking this so far. I don't know. Kind of liking it so far. All right, so we've got that. Now, I do need to figure out what I'm doing with this umbrella. Ugh. See, I think I put it right there. So let's take a minute. See if I can find, I think I put the hook here for my umbrella handle. Try not to get my big head in the picture. See if we can pull some of this excess up without, there we go, not messing up my background. I think some of it for fixing that without pulling up the background has to do with letting it dry completely. It has been drying for a few days. I hate saying that because you guys, you know, it'll look like just seamless. Ooh, 1 second I say, let's let it dry and then come back up. But it has been a fun couple days. There's lots of exciting things going on here. It's been a roller coaster of a couple weeks, but that's okay. A friend from out of town was in town and I got to see her, and I am so excited about that. And with that, my boys got a beach day and they were excited about that. Water is still a little cold in the Atlantic, but hopefully it'll start warming up. One of the pluses of spring being here, I guess, the warmer temperatures, and as I said, it does get quite warm here in Florida. But with warm temperatures means we can get to the beach and hopefully it'll start warming up that water, because that water was cold. The Atlantic Ocean when we went was very cold. My boys actually went in the water. I thought they were absolutely crazy. I had my feet in the water, and that's as far as I went. I watched them. I'm sure it's one of those things where once you get in, you're fine. It's taking that step to get in that's the crazy hard part. But I was not going in there. Nope, 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 nope. I do have, thanks to 2020, some weird tan lines because I definitely did not get out as much as I normally do with shorts or swimsuit or anything like that. So now, thanks to that, I've got weird tan lines. And yeah, so I got to fix that. I was hoping to do it at the beach a little bit better than I did, but it didn't happen. So I'm gonna have to do it. I'm gonna have to do it in short intervals too, because I don't know. For me, I burn pretty easily, and especially in places where I haven't gotten sun for a while, which would be my legs. I've got these strange capri lines. So I'll work on that. I'll have to do short intervals outside with my suit on because it's a little crazy. I'm not liking the way this seems to be coming almost too far out. Let me see if I can pull that up a little bit or straighten it out. Yeah. All right. Keep going with maybe working on these ribs. You can see how quickly this is drying. Now I do have a fan on in this room, so that certainly, helps, but it's dry right now. We are still struggling, waiting for rain. Hopefully going to get some this weekend, which is kind of good. Not sure why the rain always has to come on the weekend, but I've given up asking about that. Seems to be the way it is here. Not sure about you guys in other parts of the country and the world, but here in Central Florida, there are many a times where it seems like everything is beautiful during the week, and then just in time for the weekend is when we get some of those crazy storms or the wet weather. Can always be worse, but we need it. So we are still doing our home renovations. That is not done, so this is another reason why with me some of this painting is it's kind of a relief and an escape. This is my relaxation time when I paint, even when I'm painting with you guys here or something like that. It is very relaxing, I find. And I hope you guys do too. It's not supposed to be stressful. It's not supposed to be perfect. We've talked about this before. Let go of perfection. You can hear me saying oops all the time here. And the best I can do is when I make a mistake is try to fix it. And that's just the way it's supposed to be. This painting, maybe at best will go on somebody's wall one day, but it's not going in a museum. That's not what I'm painting it for. It's not going, it's not about being perfect. If you look at any painting and you look at it with a critical eye, there's boo-boos all over the place, and that's okay, even from the masters. They made mistakes. They had to start someplace, and that's one thing I think that, not just for us as parents, but, to teach our kids. Like, Michael Jordan wasn't born, knowing how to be a professional basketball player. I don't know, pick any greats. They had to start someplace. They had to, at one point, be an amateur. They had to be a learner before they could be the master and, eventually then teach others. So we're not any different. We're all the same. Don't be afraid of beginnings. Don't be afraid of humble beginnings. And don't be afraid to try. That's the best I can say anyway. It's, for me, I get excited when somebody tells me that they really enjoy one of my paintings. It brings me joy to know that maybe I'm bringing somebody else joy in their day. That just delights my heart to no end. Just makes me feel so good. And I know maybe it sounds strange to say that, but it makes me feel like I'm doing my part to be part of the better good in the world by doing whatever it is that I'm skilled with to put a smile on somebody else's face. And as far as I can see right now, one of those skills is painting. And so or I guess just doing my art in general. But if this is what I do to help to make the world a better place, then this is what I do, and that's cool. Makes me feel good. Makes me feel like I'm a part of something bigger. I think I already did this, but I'm gonna lift some of this up a little bit so I get a little bit of a highlight here. I think I went over it maybe too much with that blue in certain areas, so I'm gonna pull this up. Okay, and you can kind of do that with your painting so that you get, just rinse out your brush, and I think I did it definitely too dark in here. You want some of those shadows. It's going to help you to get that three-dimensionality to it, like there's a highlight and a shadow there, but too much is definitely going to start ruining that three-dimensional side to it. Once this dries, we'll make this part back here, that inside of the umbrella that you can see, we'll work on making that a little bit darker. All right, so I'm going to, let's see what I've got here. So I think this is going to come right here. All right, so I've got this. 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 So I was going to do that, but I'm thinking I might just leave it as being kind of loosey-goosey here with the ribs in the background. And maybe instead of that, maybe what I'll do is, like I did on one of the other, and put the mark, like the little bumps on the end that kind of show this is what it is. All right, so let's do this. Let's do this. Let's put a little bit, since I've got a lot of this purple in here, I'm going to really work up this purple darker area right in here. It's really going to you know what, to pull in some of that gray that we've got in there, I think I'm going to play around with adding a little touch of gray in here too. Just put that. Okay, now I want to do some little splashes out here, so I'm going to just kind of put a little boop out there, a little boop, boop, and then with that, where that yellow highlight is. The purple out there with the yellow is going to really look awesome, so maybe I'll play that up a little bit. We need a couple areas where there's some bigger splashes, so let's do one right there. Okay, as you can see, I'm really trying to be loose about this, okay? I'm trying to give this area some definition to make it look like it's a flat surface, okay? I'm just gonna kind of, okay. And let's see, let's do maybe one more smaller one right here. Okay, you really need kind of it's not really a circle. It's just kind of some kind of flattened area, and just kind of move your hand around. It'll help to give that area just a really, yeah, like that. Now, I think I want to do something to kind of help give some definition to this handle right here. I think I've mentioned before, but if you've never heard me, especially when I start painting, I mean, words are not, unless I'm sitting down to creative write, words don't always come the easiest out of my mouth. They come out of my hand, they come out of my head, but sometimes getting them out of my mouth is difficult. I can see it, but sometimes I can't say it. And it gets even worse when I'm painting because, as I've told you before, I kind of stop thinking about the object and I think about shapes. So all of a sudden I start talking about things and lines and, weird stuff like that, but getting actual names of things out of my mouth is difficult. So if you've, been with me for a little while watching some of these videos, it doesn't get better. It does frustrate people. My dad would get frustrated with me when I couldn't talk. Now my husband gets frustrated with me. My kids sometimes get frustrated with me. But it's just the way I am. And I've heard with a lot of artists, tend to be visual people. It's the same thing. Like the left and right side of the brain control different things. One controls the pictures. One controls the words. And for many artists, they tend to be on the more picture, artsy fartsy kind of side of the brain. And so getting things to words and pictures to come together and work together is sometimes difficult. But bear with us, artsy people. You might be one of those too, or maybe your kid is. Maybe that'll help you to understand what's going on in our head. It's different, it's unique, it's sometimes difficult living in a world that is so verbal when you're more pictorial than anything else. All right, and then with this, I'm going to take some of these and I'm going to give a little doot at the end of these to kind of show that that's the end there. I think that wasn't completely dry, so I might have to wait for that one. Pull that one up a little bit there. All right, let me get the other side first while that's drying. All right. All right, I'm going to give this a little bit more definition here. Use that gray to just kind of help me give a little bit of definition, since my blues are really not that dark and I didn't really go through and work them to make them super dark. I'm gonna cheat. Shh, don't tell anyone. Just give a little bit of extra definition to these shadowy areas with that gray. Kind of help to bring that out a little bit. You don't have to do that, obviously. Make it however you'd like. All right. And then I needed to get those one or two spaces a little bit better with that darker color here. All right. All right. Put a little bit of kind of look at it in the monitor. So if you're ever looking at your picture and you're questioning if it looks good, one suggestion that I've gotten and I have actually used is to take pictures of your painting and look at it from the picture, not the painting. And that'll help you to kind of judge and determine, you know, how your painting is looking, what it might need, all that good stuff. And it does work because, you know, it looks different on the phone or, you know, a camera or something like that. It just does. I have a computer obviously here with me as I'm recording this, and so I can look at the painting from the monitor, and it's amazing sometimes when I do that, the difference of how the piece looks, you know, there versus here. Kind of crazy, but just gives you an ability to look at it in a different perspective, I think. Okay, so then we have to make some decisions. It's decision-making time because I think I'm done with this for now. I might go back and fidget with it some more, but I think I'm done with it for now. I got my point across. All right, so we need to put our rain in. Now there's a couple different ways that you can do this. You can try white um, uh, watercolors. They do make, like in the tubes, some white. You can also get something called gouache, which is kind of like a watercolor, except it's opaque. So that means that it's not going to have that translucency, that see-throughness that watercolor has. It's going to be like a more liquid acrylic. Or you can do, you can take some white paint, white acrylic paint, mix it up a little bit with some water, and put that in there. So I am going to try, I think I have some gouache here. There may even be some watercolors. And I'm going to have my rain coming from this direction. So it's almost like the wind is kind of pushing this way. I think that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to start with hitting some of those. Now this might not show up all that well. The white is tricky. You kind of have to look at it just the right way. So I start when I'm doing the raindrops. It's kind of like, almost looks like a meteor shower for me. Hey, what you doing on my painting? There you go. Get off. Thank you. Probably show up in the nice dark area. Okay, just kind of, because you want it to look like those drops are falling down. Okay, but you're going to want them all over the place because it's going to help to give that idea that it's, constant all over the place. So even if it's not a very dark area and you think it's not going to show up, you can see it when you look at it differently. Now again, I've got all sorts of lights on this, so you can see where the light is hitting. But when it's hanging up, it's really going to look different compared to how it looks right now. Before you start doing this part, make sure that everything underneath is dry. And again, like I've been saying, this is all drying pretty quickly, pretty well. I probably would have either hit it with a hair dryer or let it dry first if it wasn't so dry in the house. And with the fan on and everything, it's doing a fabulous job drying it. Now, that's not always a good thing. Sometimes painting's drying too fast. Watercolors or acrylics or whatever is not a good thing. Having them dry low and slow allows for more blending time, but in some of these quick paintings with the tutorials, it does help. It might not be really dry yet. Now they don't all have to be in exactly the same direction, but you probably want some kind of directionality to your raindrops. You definitely want them to appear to be, going in somewhat the same direction. If you've got some coming this way and some coming this way, I mean, you might have a tornado or something going on at the time, but usually when raindrops fall, there's a little bit of a directionality to it. And, the more you can kind of give that in your painting, the better I think that it helps the viewer to believe what they're seeing is possibly real, if that makes sense. Gives it a little bit more realism to it. Now I seem to keep hitting all my little wires over here, so I'm trying not. Some of my raindrops are bigger than others, some are darker than others. And again, I think that kind of helps add to the playing around, the realism or the believability of the piece, maybe. Let's see. Trying to see what else the piece may need. Let's see. Now, I think for some of these areas where I was trying to get this idea that a splash had happened, or that there was a splash from this, I had kind of made a little check mark with my white, and let's see. We're gonna, I guess, make lots of them this go around. Very splashy storm out there today, or at least on my piece of paper here today. And I'm going to kind of highlight those by giving it a shadow, of all things. That kind of helps the white to stand out just a little bit more. When there's just a hint of this, that there's a little something else going on here. Okay. Helps to give it that idea that there's some action kind of going on here. All right, let's see here. Let me see if I can get some extra white spots maybe through here a little bit. Okay, and then over here where there might have been where I put some of those, I'm also going to add a little bit of white, like right in through here where there's that ripple, just to kind of give it a little highlight. All right, let's see here. Can't decide whether I want to sit down or stand up today. Giving me a little extra exercise maybe. All right, where some of these where I put this shadow, let's give it a little extra highlight here. Now this area over here I did make pretty light, so those might not show up all that best, but I think because I put the little shadows over there, I think it should be pretty good. I'm afraid to put too much more though, because I don't want to do too much. No, I think I'm going to leave it like that. All right, and then once you're done, you can sign it. You can obviously sign it with your gouache or your watercolors or whatever you want. If you prefer to have a little bit more control over your signatures, then with this, if you have in the past gotten, any of these watercolor pencils, you could use this to sign your piece. Okay, so like I would put it, I try not to have my signature be a little, anything too loud or, out there. What you do is up to you. I usually try to blend it in a little bit so it's there. I've had people say that they wish my signatures were bigger. I, I, hmm, I kind of go back and forth with that personally. The one thing you want to do, especially if you ever decide that you want to frame these pieces or that somebody else might want to, is to give yourself some space. Don't put it right down here at the bottom because it'll be covered up with the frame. So you want to put it in a little bit. So I usually just sign my name, Chris, and that's it. And there's my piece. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you had some fun. If you have any questions, as always, please let me know. I am happy to help wherever I can. I want your art journey to be a fun one for you, a fun one for your kids. It, again, doesn't have to be complicated or difficult. And whatever I can do in order to help you, I would love the opportunity to do that. Have fun with it, guys. Enjoy it. As you saw, this was, a pretty simple piece. We didn't do anything too crazy or, big or extravagant. This was really simple, really relaxed, and you get a really beautiful piece in the long run. And, in the end, it is your final product. And that's what it's just supposed to be about. It's supposed to be having fun, creating something beautiful, creating some fun, wonderful memories for yourself, with your kids, all of those wonderful, beautiful things. So take the time to do it. I don't think you'll regret it. I really don't. Put on some fun music, the radio or something like that, and bring out the art supplies. Let it be fun. Let it be simple. Let something awesome come out of it. Let the conversation flow and the creativity flow. I think you'll have a lot of fun doing it. Enjoy yourself and happy arting, everyone.